What's up, everybody? Welcome to Let's Get Nerdy and another episode of Go-Go-Godzilla. My name's Corey.
I'm Wyatt.
And in this series, we're going through every single Godzilla movie in the franchise to determine which one truly is
King of them all. And today we're going to go through Godzilla Raids again.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and start this off like we do every one of these movies so far. Give our history, if any personal history with this movie, and our initial thoughts before we start to break down any plot or anything of that nature. So, Wyatt, do you have any history with Godzilla Raids Again?
Honestly, no. I had never seen this one. Not out of not wanting to watch it. I just never got around to it. Kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
And then when we started talking about doing this series, I thought I would just save it and wait for the video coming up to watch it and kind of get into it that way. So I don't really have any prior experience with it. What about you?
Yeah. I've watched it once, well over like 10 or 15 years ago, and thought it was really boring at the time, and just didn't remember very much of it. So it felt like I was watching it for the first time.
Oh yeah.
Truly, like there were definitely things I remembered from it, but yeah.
Yeah.
So not a lot of history, I would say. Not definitely was never on like one of my top 10 list. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
And I guess in terms of initial thoughts, I don't know if that's going to change. There's a lot of really cool firsts to see in this movie in terms of like things that'll come back up throughout the series in terms of Godzilla, his first opponent. This is the debut of Anguirus as his first ever villain. So you kind of get to see the first actual, the fight against another monster, which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
You get the first appearance of the pagoda that gets destroyed in almost every single movie. And so that's, again, pretty cool to kind of see a lot of firsts introduced. But I don't know if I can say much more than that, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I guess some initial thoughts that I had too was, kind of along the same lines. Like, it was cool to see some firsts in the movie. It was cool to finally see the movie. I was pretty excited when we sat down to watch it, and I did enjoy. I did enjoy it, and honestly, like I like Anguirus. I've always liked him, mainly because I don't know, probably because like I liked fighting against him in the Destroy All Monsters Melee.
Yeah.
I think. So it's just that I guess I said words are hard today.
They are.
I have had some nostalgia for that monster since playing the game when I was little and stuff, and I've always liked him when he showed up in other movies. So that was kind of my main excitement, was to see him really see his introduction to the series. So
yeah.
But I think, to kind of echo you, I don't think this one's going to make the top 10 list. When it's all said and done. So
yeah. And now we're going to get into some actual more, I guess, plot-heavy details here. More specific thoughts about some scenes throughout the movie. Which, starting with myself, I'll just say, this movie, in terms of plot, doesn't have a lot to report. It's definitely, in my opinion, a lot thinner than the previous movie of the original Godzilla 54, and especially compared to like Godzilla -1, some of the other movies we've covered so far.
Yeah.
I mentioned firsts in our initial thoughts, like seeing a lot of firsts happen. This is the first movie where the humans I don't care about.
Yeah.
This is definitely starting the trend of like the human plot is just not nearly as engaging as what's happening with Godzilla. Like some previous films we've already covered.
Yeah.
So like the movie, to start off, is you're following like a couple of pilots who, from what I gather in the movie, that they're surveying for like fish, like schools of fish to fish.
Right.
And one of the pilots gets stranded on an island after some engine troubles, and when he finally is getting rescued, they run into Godzilla and Anguirus in a very weirdly shot. I guess, how did you feel about the introduction of the movie and the monsters of the movie?
Yeah, like I kind of I thought it was a fun introduction. Like, it seemed like kind of lighthearted, and like there could be some chemistry. Well, there was chemistry with these characters, and I was kind of into that at first and stuff. But yeah, like the whole introduction to Godzilla was like really just right off the bat. There wasn't much suspense to like wondering where he is and what's been going on.
Yeah,
Like it was just kind of like he's there,
yeah,
you know. And then on top of that, it wasn't just that like, oh shit, Godzilla's here. It's, oh shit, there's a new monster,
uh-huh.
and they're fighting. There wasn't much suspense
Yeah,
or build up, which is okay. But
yeah. And then I mean, like 30 seconds into their initial fight,
yeah,
they're rolling to the ocean.
yeah,
What I will say is you do get the first shot of his new look. So this is because this is technically a new Godzilla.
yeah,
They do mention that in the very next scene of like, kind of playing off of like uh, what they said at the end of the original Godzilla. There's potentially more of these monsters out there, and this is it's a lot sleeker of a look, not so much of the mushroom cloudy look that you get from the initial Godzilla. And I actually read into it the one of the like so not only is this a much lighter suit than the 200-pound suit that the previous movie had, they were actually plaster models that like they plastered the people who would like be in Angus's and Godzilla's suit. They plastered so it would be a lot more of a tailored fit,
hmm,
not just this hunk of suit that they just put the dude in like the first movie.
hmm. Oh, that's
So that's
interesting.
why they're kind of a lot more maneuverable, and Godzilla has a lot more like you see a lot more full body shots of Godzilla in this than
Hmm.
maybe you did in the original movie.
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
It's definitely a nice a touch for those actors, I'm sure, because
yeah.
that first suit sounds like it was pretty miserable
Yeah,
to have
it
been in.
sounds like
So
terrible.
yeah,
So yeah, and so this leads into again, like the previous movie, there's a kind of a boardroom meeting
yeah,
discussing not only the return of a new Godzilla, but the Anguirus monster, which I guess they have a textbook information about like the Ankylosaurus, I think is what it was initially called back
yeah,
in the
something like
prehistoric
that.
times. And pretty much, and then you actually do get a returning character. The I think Doctor Yamana, I think is
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, something like that.
I'm terrible with names in general, um, but and they're consulting him of how to actually handle Godzilla, and he essentially says that they can't.
Yeah, it's you're done.
Yeah, the one solution they had is unfortunately dead.
Yeah.
I'm moving this table,
Oh, you're good.
but which interesting thing because this is again when they confirm that this is a different Godzilla. It's not the same as the original Godzilla. In America, this movie was not called Godzilla Raids Again. Why? Do you know what it was called?
No.
It
Uh,
was Gigantus, the fire monster.
what?
Because it was called Gigantus because they thought it would actually be too It would be too confusing for American audiences because like Godzilla died in the previous film, so there's no way this could be Godzilla.
Oh my.
So yeah, it was Gigantus. I think and I read this in that book that we both talked about
Oh
last one
yeah.
from our school library that Gigantus was like supposed to be a girl or a woman monster.
Really?
I read that in the book. Again, there's some stuff in that book that I found is not true. So I'm done. I kind of there's
Hmm.
a grain of salt as far as that one goes.
Yeah.
But it was called Gigantus, and it was technically not Godzilla in America.
Hmm.
So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
I will say this Godzilla needs to go to the dentist.
yeah. The
His
teeth were rough.
his teeth are rough. Like they're just like stuck out like straight, almost not straight out, but like
Yeah,
whew,
definitely. Like I will say, 'cause I do like the look of this Godzilla suit a little bit better because it's just a little bit more akin to what we kind of
yeah,
see further on down the series. But yeah, the teeth are definitely you can see where they're still figuring out what Godzilla
yeah,
looks like, and
yeah.
then
It was cool though how his eyes were like able to move
move.
and
Yeah,
stuff. So
yeah, absolutely, definitely. And so then this kind of leads into more of the human plot. The as like I think so. One of the pilots, I think, we follow one of the pilots as they're on a date with one of the control operators who was communicating with them while they're flying.
Yeah.
And this is where then we get the announcement that Godzilla is going to be attacking Osaka, or is on his way to attack Osaka, because like he's been spotted in the harbor somewhere on their way, and so they end up. I think is this where they do the blackout?
I think
A lot of this blurs together because it's kind of hard to follow,
it's hard to
and
follow.
it
Yeah,
just
it's
again, unfortunately, kind of falls into the just. It's not very interesting. It's definitely not, you know, on the level of Sarazawa contemplating the oxygen destroyer.
yeah,
Definitely not on the level of Shikishima, dealing with the PTSD of war. Like,
yeah.
you know,
It had a very like lighthearted feel to it,
yeah,
which in some scenes worked, but I think there was at least two or three times when we were sitting here watching this and it was like, what the hell is going
yeah,
on? Like what,
yeah,
where where are we at in this plot?
yeah, yeah,
I honestly it was pretty easy to kind of lose where you're at,
yeah, absolutely.
but
And so then, yeah, like, and I think in this part we get like a 5 minute. Oh, it's actually I kind of brushed past this in the like conference room. The doctor or the zoologist from the original Godzilla movie talks about how he brought footage in from
mhm.
the initial Tokyo attack, and literally five like almost it feels like 5 or 10 minutes of this movie is taken up by just watching previous footage of the movie
Yeah,
in the movie.
right.
Like just very which was kind of funny, and then yeah, we get this kind of like a lounge, like a full on lounge song and dance number,
Yeah,
um, that is eventually Godzilla again shows. I think at this point does show up in Osaka.
yeah. He shows up in the
Uh,
bay.
yeah, and but shows up in the bay, and so the solution is they cut off all the power to almost indicate that there's nothing here, and
Hmm.
they're trying to draw him away using flares because they indicate that in the previous movie that light is what really attracted Godzilla to certain places.
Yeah, it kind of like triggered his like a reaction to when the bombs went off and it
Hmm.
caused his initial mutation that it probably angered or scared him in some capacity. So he's trying to either attack or you know just lash out in a way. So lights are kind of an attraction in a sense.
Hmm.
Like so the flares that he should be following the flares and the city could be blacked out and
Yeah.
lead him out to the deeper ocean. So
Yeah, and at this point there is, which I looked at my phone down on my phone just to check it real quick, and I looked back up, and all of a sudden there's a prison break scene where these prisoners are like running from the cops, and they're driving in like uh, I guess I don't know, was it like an oil tanker that they were driving?
yeah, it was like some kind of an oil tanker or a gas truck or
Hmm.
something.
And
Yeah,
their attempt to get away, they end up somehow crashing their oil tanker into then a giant like an oil refinery or oil like gas depository. I don't know what their actual
it,
terms for these buildings are,
I think it
but
was like they were at the cannery that was in relation to the fishing
mhm,
business that the pilots were working with, and then yeah, the gas oil truck, whatever it was, yeah, like you said, went on this like cartoonish ramp over several other things and into another thing, and then
mhm.
blew up, and then they blew up again.
Yeah.
And I don't. Did those prisoners die in that truck? I don't
Oh yeah.
remember. Okay, I didn't know if they like rolled out or
If they rolled out, I don't remember that they rolled out.
okay.
I remember that they blew up in the truck. But anyway, this very quickly attracts Godzilla back into Osaka, and then it turns out it also attracted Anguirus,
Yeah,
and so we immediately kind of start to get a little bit of a destruction scene, and we get the first ever actual Godzilla versus another monster. In this case, Anguirus. On film, and it's a little interesting because like at first it's just pretty clear just dudes like wrestling around, And the camera work is a little interesting because like I actually read into it for these scenes. They only did like 18 frames per second, which is lower. I think I forget the average amount, but it's lower than the average amount. So that's why, like, if you watch it, it's kind of a little bit skippy, not super smooth as maybe the previous Godzilla movie was.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, it looked like they were sped up too.
yeah, so that because it was removing frames,
Right.
so it was
Okay.
able to like get through images a little bit quicker. So that was
Interesting.
kind of the idea. Um, and a lot for the most part, a lot of the action again was obviously it's them kind of figuring out how to choreograph a Godzilla fight because this is the first time they've ever had
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just looks like dudes wrestling around. Like like Godzilla keeps getting Anguirus in a headlock.
Yeah, it was a lot of the same. Yeah, like him pushing him down or having him in a headlock, or Anger's kind of like biting his legs or something, or trying
Yeah,
to jump up and bite his like chest and neck and stuff, and then he would just get pushed back down into a headlock, and then they would kind of roll each other over
yeah.
every so often.
Which actually, I'm mistaken. The prisoners did end up getting out of the truck
Did they?
because they're running through like the train, like they're trying to like run through like a subway or a train
Oh
station,
yeah, okay, that's
and
right.
Godzilla like steps through it, and like water like comes rushing down,
That's
and ends
right.
up
Yeah,
drowning them there. I think they end up dying there. I'm pretty sure. I could
I
again
don't
be
remember
wrong.
honestly.
Um, but because I remember thinking that was actually a pretty cool effect.
I do remember the water rushing into the subway station, but
Yeah, yeah, again I thought that was actually a pretty cool effect.
yeah, yeah,
And then this also then leads to probably the coolest moments in the actual Godzilla versus Anguirus fight of like it gets pretty brutal.
yeah,
Where like Anguirus, like Godzilla grabs Anguirus and throws him through the pagoda that we were talking about previously.
yeah.
The pagoda that we'll see in a lot of other Godzilla movies going forward. Um, he literally throws him through it, and it like shatters like it's glass.
Yeah.
And then Godzilla bites the neck of Anguirus and like doesn't let go.
He chews on it, man.
Yeah,
It's like it, it's violent. They talked about in that conference room meeting about how Anguirus, like that species, was violent and aggressive, and then Godzilla was like
yeah,
he was going after it.
yeah. It was surprisingly brutal for
Yeah,
how like the other action was again just a dude getting another dude in a headlock
yeah,
wearing some costumes.
yeah. And then it was black and white, but you could see they had put like blood on the suit, and like Anguirus
Yeah,
is like squalling in pain and like trying to kind of get
yeah,
away, and Godzilla's just like ripping his neck apart and
yeah.
stuff. But
Well, and another thing I wanted to bring up is for the most part it's the dude like the suits fighting, but every now and again you'll get like these close ups that I think are like animatronic or like like stop motion puppets.
it did, yeah,
Yeah,
it seemed like it.
but it like the way it did like it just reminded me of like the Rankin Bass like the red Rudolph the Red-Nosed
Oh,
Reindeer type of like
yeah,
stop motion.
yeah,
I don't know why it just made me think it's particularly Angerus because like he had the head movement kind of
yeah,
like the reindeer from those old Christmas
yeah.
movies.
I could see
Uh,
it. Yeah,
and then the fight ends in just
yeah,
a super brutal manner.
yeah.
Like
Godzilla like rolls him off into the water and then burns him.
yeah, uses atomic breath to set Angerus on fire.
He roasts him like a turkey, man. Like
We were both sitting on the couch and like almost like all right, what's happening? And then like both I think both were like, oh my god. That's definitely I think a step up from like again just a dude putting another dude in a headlock. Yeah.
yeah, it went from like kind of a fight in the alley to like war crimes, like real quick.
Yeah. And then from there, I guess they from here, I believe they end up telling us that the fight and the victory ends up like calming Godzilla down for a bit, and he ends up leaving
Yeah.
Osaka. And that ends the brutal raid. And you do get actually, I would say you do get a pretty cool shot of one of the characters. I forget her name. One of the like the main girl, viewing from like a balcony, and she sees like almost like a mushroom cloud of Osaka burning,
Hmm.
which I read was a reference to like the like um, people who like people outside of Hiroshima being able to see the mushroom cloud of the explosion.
Oh,
So
okay.
that there is a little bit still like calling that this is definitely a way less of a serious movie,
Hmm.
way less of an actual like active protest or actively like playing up the memories of the nuclear bombs. But there's still like a little bit of a remnant of those
Hmm.
plot points. I don't know how you
Oh, that's
would say
interesting. Yeah.
that. But yeah, and this then kind of leads to a long period of like some weird scenes.
Yeah, I think it was at this point too when you asked me how much time was left in the movie, so we stopped it, and there's still like half an hour left at this point. It feels like the end of the movie
Yeah,
though.
yeah, because it's the only fight we actually get of Godzilla and Anguirus, which is like understandable. Because,
Yeah,
but yeah, then there's 30 minutes left of movie,
yeah,
and then it immediately kind of feels like they forget this is a Godzilla movie.
yeah. There's a little bit of that like sadness and like a little bit of despair post fight, and then
Mm.
it's gone pretty quickly, and then
Yeah,
they're kind of like laughing and joking about weird
yeah,
stuff.
because
Like,
in the same literally in the same scene, they started by talking how they need to move some people to a different city to start working on recovering the the fish refinery there, or however I think that's the right words. But then immediately switches to one of the guys saying he needs to find a wife because you know for whatever reason like two of the other characters are going to get married. They've had a longer engagement. You
yeah,
know, somebody, I don't know what the quote was, but somebody quotes Confucius here.
yeah.
I,
The girl that he was like he likes but doesn't want to say he likes, and then she likes him, but she doesn't want to say that she likes him, and like they're like in that weird angsty like teasing like, oh, I don't like you, but I like you.
yeah.
I think she's the one that quoted Confucius.
Okay. Which yeah, and so that you get like a lot of scenes of that where like there are still I guess there's like search parties for Godzilla,
Yeah,
but then it's just
just kind of like laughing and hanging
yeah
out in the snow and like partying and
yeah you
drinking.
yeah one of the characters ends up like reuniting with like war buddies who also he
Yeah,
went to college with,
yeah. It's just
and
kind of weird. Like
yeah just yeah it's just like
it's like they just kind of forgot that the
yeah
city, like that Osaka, was just
obliterated
obliterated.
yeah. And eventually, this kind of leads to what I suppose you would call the climax of the film of like one of the pilots is then still back out, uh, flying, looking for new like schools of fish and all this, and ends up finding Godzilla on like I don't know if it was like an iceberg or just a snowed-in island,
Yeah.
um, and probably one of the worst shots of Godzilla I've ever seen because it literally is like an overhead shot of just like almost it looks like an action figure left out,
Yeah.
and that like it made me think of like I used to have this friend, me and my friend Griffin. We used to go to like our local middle school in Lawrence, and like they had the uh, like long jump sand pit, and
Hmm.
we would put our Godzilla figures in there, and it made me think of that. Like that's what it
Yeah.
made me think of, and yeah, it was one of the worst shots of Godzilla I've ever seen.
Honestly, yeah, because
Uh,
like his tail's not moving, his arms aren't moving, like he's just like
yeah.
frozen.
And this pretty much leads to the finale where they end up they're trying to shoot Godzilla and drop bombs on Godzilla, and
Yeah.
that's not working, and that's not this is kind of the first inkling we have of Godzilla like not really being able to be killed by conventional weaponry. um, and then the pilot Kobayashi, who is the main guy, who is the main pilot that we've been following, ends up like when he's trying to distract Godzilla, I guess like messes up, or no, Godzilla hits him with the atomic
Yeah.
ray
Yeah.
and sets his plane on fire, but causes an avalanche to like trigger the final game plan.
Yeah. Yeah, and he does. He just like slams like right into the side of the mountain, and
Yeah,
that's it. That's
yeah,
that's him.
yeah.
He,
Another surprisingly, shockingly brutal moment
yeah,
for this movie.
yeah. Which and then yeah, it does. It gives them the idea that okay, they can bury him with an avalanche, bury Godzilla with an avalanche. But then it does cut back to the cannery, and they are just kind of like, yeah. By the way, he's not coming back.
Yeah, that's literally how they say it.
That's
Like
it.
she goes to tell her because it turns out her dad is also the boss of the fish company, the fishing company. Which I don't know why a fishing company is so in the middle of this military plan. By the way, um, and all the way she says it, she's and I don't know if this was maybe the. I think this might have been the translation of the subtitles.
It might have been, yeah.
Uh, but like they literally say, just she goes, Kobayashi is not coming back, but he found a way to beat Godzilla.
It was so like just matter of
And
factly, like
yeah, and then like they kind of make a deal of like, all right, we now know what we need to do, and then they take a moment though and take a break and make a new plan altogether. And you pointed out to me the plan is very similar to a plan we see in Top Gun Maverick
it really
of
is.
like dive bombing in and then coming back out the other side of the canyon or
Yeah,
whatever Godzilla's in.
yeah. They gotta like dive, hit the target at the bottom of their dive, and then make the steep incline out, and not
Yeah,
hit the mountain on the way out.
yeah,
It's Top Gun Maverick ripped
yep.
off Godzilla, but
But and I guess Wyatt, I'll let you take the reins on this one. What did you think of this climax of Godzilla raids again?
it was unique. I yeah, it was unique. I thought it was interesting. It just felt like 5 minutes or 10 minutes of watching these little planes like circle and bomb a mountain and hear a Godzilla roar occasionally, and
Yeah,
it got it went on for a little bit too long maybe, but it got the point across. Excuse me, and I did think it was interesting like how the snow it looked like salt. Like if you had zoomed in on salt, like it looked like
yeah,
salt pebbles or like big chunks of ice rather than like
yeah.
snow.
Well, because
But
that's why I think it was a glacier because I think they were shooting off
yeah,
pieces of ice off of the
right,
glacier to cause the avalanche.
yeah. I
But
don't really know.
yeah, regardless, it just yeah,
It was interesting though.
yeah, it was interesting, but they're like then it just hits the point of like you realize they're just kind of reusing the same footage
Yeah,
of the bombing, and then like you kind of get to the point of like, okay, when is this? What's the game plan here? Like, when is this wrapping up? What are we doing next
yeah,
year?
yeah. What's going on?
And slowly, like more and more pilots end up crashing or
Yeah,
getting killed. Like, I think all it ends up being like all the pilots die except for one.
yeah. I don't know how many were left specifically,
Yeah,
but it also like I feel like, and this may just be because they hadn't quite figured out how Godzilla was going to work yet as far as his attributes and stuff. But like
yeah,
he didn't like he didn't like use his atomic breath to like melt the ice or anything. Like he just kind of stood there.
yeah.
Like
That's
he didn't even try and move.
yeah, yeah. That was the
He's
other thing. Like, there just did never felt like there was in any actual like danger for the people involved.
yeah.
You
Other
know,
than like they got close enough for him to hit him with their breath, and they might get clipped and fly into the mountain. But
yeah, yeah. Which and so eventually this pretty much wraps up of like they finally get him buried in the ice, So and that's kind of it. Like it's very much the opposite of
yeah,
where in the end of Godzilla 1954 you get this overtly emotional like we said like it fills you with this sense of dread and like you sit with this moment of like this creature who didn't even know what was happening to him is getting is being
yeah,
uh, you know killed and all that, and then you get the sacrifice of Dr. Serizawa, and they kind of do try to recreate that with like them remembering that Kobayashi for his sacrifice of, and
yeah.
so you get a bit of that, but it's definitely not
It's not the
the
same.
level of the first one.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it's definitely not.
and yeah, and that's pretty much it. There's really not a lot that happens in the movie. It's a very thin
It
movie, I
is.
think,
Yeah.
especially compared to what we've covered so far.
Yeah.
It doesn't very much elicit strong reactions. Like I would say, like I'm surprised by, and I guess now we're just going to kind of transition a little bit naturally into final thoughts and
Yeah.
analysis here of like uh, I'm surprised by how like matter of factly the whole Anger's fight went because like
Yeah.
we just get the one fight and then it's and maybe this is me like getting spoiled by the later movies where like I'm used to like we get the first small fight and then we get the second we get like
Yeah.
two or three fights per movie with these monsters and like you just get the one and it's and Godzilla outright just burns them alive. you know
Yeah. Yeah. I guess final thoughts for me is like I don't hate the movie.
uh-huh.
I enjoyed watching it, and I appreciate it being like a step in the Godzilla like in the list of movies like to get us where we are now.
Yeah.
I definitely think it contributed to that, you know. But I don't think it's one I'm going to rush to watch again anytime
No,
soon.
yeah, this is very, very far from my recommended list.
Yeah,
And one thing I did find interesting because like we didn't talk about it too much, but like the special effects definitely don't I think hold to that level of I think I mentioned I do like the look of Godzilla better in this. But other than that, like yeah, the footage like is almost like feels sped up,
yeah,
and then there's like a large chunk of the movie spent watching the last movie.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I think we did look before we started it. Wasn't it came out like a year after
it
the
was
original one, right?
so the original one was released in November of 1954. This was released in April of 1955. So
Gosh.
like literally less than because like what happened was I was reading into the I forget the guy's name, the producer for the or for like in the one of the heads at Toho, like with how well Godzilla was doing previously, they immediately uh,
Hmm.
greenlit a sequel, which this actually has a different director because the director the director for the original Godzilla was already working on a different movie completely, so he couldn't work on this one.
Oh.
So that's kind of why you also just get a like almost a different vibe altogether.
Hmm.
Um, and actually, the other thing I read about this was like this one was actually initially accepted a little bit better than the first one
Hmm.
because man the name escapes me. And I feel bad because the director for the original Godzilla, the '54 Godzilla, was saying he thinks it because this one was like just a little bit less weird overall. It's a little bit more of a straightforward
Yeah.
action movie, and he thinks people maybe just weren't ready for his Godzilla movie, which is you could probably make that argument because like over time the first one has aged considerably better
Oh
and
yeah.
has obviously a much larger impact and legacy than this one.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, again, I guess going back, my final wrap up thoughts really is again, it's really cool to see the a lot of the first for this franchises, the first attacks, first like one on one monster fight and all that. But there's just not a lot, there's not a lot here, that I guess sticks with me or that I'm going to come back to. Like
Yeah.
I don't really think I'm ever going to watch this one again if I'm being honest, unless like I'm marathoning through the whole series again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Same.
and again, I guess I am grading it a little bit on a curve, being as this is the first, and this is them still figuring out what is a Godzilla movie outside of the initial one. So
Yeah.
I do keep that in mind. But other than that, again, yeah, I'm like very probably never gonna recommend this to anybody. Probably never gonna really talk about this to anybody. I don't
Yeah.
think so. And with that, we're going to get to the point of the video. Now we're going to rank this and see how it stacks up to the other Godzilla movies in the franchise. So far, the ranking already is at number 6. We have Godzilla versus Kong. At number 5, we have Godzilla 2014. At number 4, we have Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. At number 3, we have Godzilla 1954, the original. Number 2, we have Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019. And number one, we still have Godzilla minus one. And with that, Wyatt, I'm going to take the reins on this one. Ranking wise, I think this is number seven. I don't think
What?
as much as many problems that I've had with some of the other movies on this list. I think I'd just be quicker to watch them again,
Oh
and I
yeah.
think that they just what we know of as a Godzilla movie, and what I look for in a Godzilla movie as of 2024. Um, Godzilla Raids Again just doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Again, all credit to being the first of for a lot of us.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I don't go back and watch the first NBA players.
Yeah.
This is kind of the nature of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I do appreciate this movie. I think it's, if you've never seen it, it's probably worth checking out just to watch it.
yeah,
I'm glad I have seen it now. But yeah, it's number seven for me. I'm not gonna seek it out. If it was on TV and I was cleaning my house or something, I might just have it on in the background. But I'm not gonna sit down on a Friday night and seek it out.
yeah.
So
Well, so with that, the new updated ranking then is number seven, Raids Again. Number six, uh, Godzilla versus Kong, the 2021 version. And then after that's Godzilla 2014 at number five. Number five. And then at number four, we have Godzilla X Kong the New Empire. Number three, we have the original Godzilla from 1954. Number two, we have Godzilla King of the Monsters. And number one, we have Godzilla minus one. Pretty quick video this time.
yeah,
Next up, we are going to be covering the original Godzilla versus King Kong. And so, yeah, please stay tuned for that. And thank you for joining us. Have a good rest of your day.
thank you guys.